Heart's story isn't just a rise and fall tale. It's a battle against an industry that didn't know what to do with two powerful women who refused to fit its mold. Anne and Nancy Wilson built a career out of pushing back, whether against labels, scandals, or their own internal storms. This is how Heart rose, crashed, and reinvented themselves again and again. Roots of a revolution. Heart's roots stretch back to late 60s Seattle, where Anne and Nancy Wilson grew up in a musical household shaped by the Beatles, folk harmonies, and Led Zeppelin. Anne developed a soaring, expressive voice, while Nancy mastered the acoustic guitar style that eventually became the band's signature.
Slide up to an A note, which is on your 4th string, 7th fret, next to your open A bass note. And it's kind of nice on an acoustic if you're strong, as you become stronger, to kind of give it a little more personality by...
By the early 70s, Anne joined a local rock group, soon renamed Heart, featuring Roger Fisher, Steve Fossen, and Mike DeRozier. Nancy followed in 1974, completing the lineup that fans now consider classic. Moving to Vancouver for steady work, Heart sharpened their mix of folk, hard rock, and acoustic-driven intensity, setting the stage for their breakthrough. Who started the scandal that sparked Barracuda? Heart's debut album, Dreamboat Annie, began modestly. Recorded in Vancouver and released through the small Canadian label Mushroom Records, it first gained traction locally before gradually picking up US airplay. But once stations embraced Magic Man and Crazy on You, the album exploded.
Yeah, crazy, because the word crazy is so fun to sing. And back then I was listening to Gino Vanelli a lot. And I thought, yeah, Gino could sing this, you know?
Fans connected instantly with Anne's powerhouse vocals and Nancy's dynamic acoustic attack, a sound unlike anything else on mid-70s rock radio. Critics dubbed them the female Led Zeppelin, a label that reflected both admiration and the novelty of women leading a hard rock band.
Well, it's all your fault.
Yeah. We've started out having family bands.
By 1977, Dreamboat Annie was on its way to multi-platinum status, and Heart appeared to be unstoppable. The label war that could have killed their career. Just as Heart's star was rising, Mushroom Records detonated a scandal that nearly destroyed the band. To promote Dreamboat Annie, the label ran a sleazy full-page ad implying an incestuous relationship between Anne and Nancy. The sisters were humiliated and furious. During a backstage party, a record executive repeated the insinuation, asking Anne whether the rumors about the sisters were true.
You're the best fans in the world. You're still there. You've always been there for us. And so we're here to give back because we've got a new book for you. You can get sneak peeks of it online. And of course, Fanatic, the new album's coming out too. And you already know the box set, so it's...
Enraged, she stormed out, sat down, and began writing the lyrics to what became Barracuda, a ferocious attack on industry exploitation. The scandal pushed Heart to break their Mushroom contract, sparking a legal war that consumed the rest of 1977. But the rage they felt transformed into one of the fiercest hard rock anthems of the decade.
I went straight into denial, like, this cannot be true, you're lying. No. And he was like, yes. And it was really incredible of him to call me personally. And then we were like, who gets to tell Anne? Should I tell Anne? No, you tell Anne. Okay, I'll tell Anne. And so I got to text Anne, and then she got it on the plane that night, so.
When success turns into civil war. When Heart walked away from Mushroom Records, the label retaliated. Mushroom insisted the band owed them another album, and quickly assembled a messy patchwork of unfinished demos and live cuts, packaging it as magazine without the band's approval. Heart was furious. At the same time, they rushed into the studio under their new label, Portrait, recording an entirely new album in just 3 weeks. The courts eventually sided with Heart, ruling that Mushroom had to pull the unauthorized magazine and let the band finish it properly. By then, Heart had already released Little Queen, anchored by Barracuda, a direct attack on the industry's manipulation. What made a guitarist snap on stage? On the charts, Heart looked invincible. Their 1978 album Dog and Butterfly produced hits, sold millions, and reinforced the Wilson sisters as the creative center of the band. But behind closed doors, the group was coming apart. Romance and work blurred into one tangled knot. Ann dated Mike Fisher, the band's manager.
Was born on an real super early morning when I realized that my relationship was starting to go numb. And I probably wasn't going to be able to bring it back.
While Nancy was in a stormy relationship with guitarist Roger Fisher. As those relationships cracked, so did the band's unity.
Great time of Heart. I had gotten together with Nancy when I was living with Ed Myronick, learning how to build guitars. And she finally broke down and decided she's going to get together with Raj. So we got together, and it was just so magical, so wonderful.
The men felt overshadowed, as Ann and Nancy became the public face of Heart, while the sisters grew frustrated by the male members' partying and secrecy. The tension peaked in 1979, when Roger Fisher, overwhelmed by emotion, smashed his guitar on stage, in an explosive moment known as the kerbong.
Really hot, because we wanted it. We were young, extremely oversexed, and God, we wanted it so damn bad. You want to hear and see the band from 1978?
Yes, we do!
Rebuilding a band from the inside out. After the breakup of the original lineup, Ann and Nancy pushed forward with a retooled Heart, but the early 80s brought challenges they couldn't outrun. Private Audition and Passion Works tried to modernize the band's sound with synths and electronic drums, but the material struggled to connect. Their longtime producer was gone, radio trends were shifting, and the sisters felt increasingly disconnected from the music the label wanted. 2 albums underperformed, and in 1984 the band was dropped entirely. For the first time since the 70s, Heart stood without a record deal.
You know, just all those great influences. We took it all with us, and when you try to rip off all your favorite artists, you sort of end up with something original, I think. And but it's all in there, and it's all part of what made who we are. So,
exhausted, unsure of their direction, and watching the industry move on, Ann and Nancy found themselves at a crossroads. Few bands survive a fall like this, but Heart's biggest reinvention was still ahead. The years when nothing seemed to work. Just when it seemed Heart might fade away, the mid-80s offered an unexpected lifeline. Signing with Capitol Records in 1985, Ann and Nancy agreed to a full reinvention, built for the MTV era. Out went the acoustic-tinged 70s sound. In came polished arena rock, pop-leaning hooks, and songs from outside writers. The strategy worked beyond anything Heart had imagined. Their self-titled Heart album rocketed to #1, went multi-platinum, and delivered a string of top 10 hits, including their first #1 single.
Look for Ann and Nancy Wilson's memoir. There's a little card in here that lets you know that not only is there a book coming out, a memoir coming out this year, but there's also...
Suddenly the band was everywhere, on MTV, on magazine covers, and in sold-out arenas. They doubled down with Bad Animals and Brigade, scoring more smash singles and becoming a defining force of 80s rock. Heart hadn't just staged a comeback, they'd become bigger than ever before. The makeover that shocked the industry. But their success came with a hidden cost. Capitol Records pushed a glamorous new image, spotlighting Nancy's physique while strategically hiding Ann's weight in music videos.
Fascinated with language and words and storytelling. And he used to, on his reel-to-reel, used to tape other radio programs. There was the one called
Firesign Theater.
Firesign Theater, and there was another theater, just radio theater in general. And he kept like libraries of radio shows. And so as a family, we went to the beach as often as we could get there, down in Oregon, a really beautiful place. And we'd have fires at night, and we would listen to...
Ann was often filmed only from the waist up, a painful reminder of how the industry judged her appearance more than her voice. Creative control also slipped away. Many of the era's biggest hits weren't written by the Wilson sisters, leaving them feeling sidelined on their own albums. Privately, the sisters turned inward, spending nights isolated in hotel rooms, leaning on weed, alcohol, or whatever dulled the stress. They never missed shows, but the pace was punishing. By 1990, burnout collided with shifting musical tides, and the glam rock era they dominated was collapsing under its own weight. Bigger stages, bigger problems. As grunge took over the early 90s, ironically rising from their own Seattle backyard, Heart felt out of step with the moment. Recognizing the change, Ann and Nancy stepped away from the spotlight entirely. To their surprise, Seattle's new rock generation welcomed them warmly. Members of Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, and others treated the Wilson sisters as icons, not relics.
And there were some people that came along and said, well, you know, you should be wearing makeup and you should be, you know, you should wear the clothes where you can, you know, shorter skirts or see the light between your thighs or...
Heart released Desire Walks On in 1993, but the band soon went dormant again. The sisters focused on personal growth, film scoring, charity work, and healing from years of relentless touring.
Rocking out.
In the mid-70s, when we released our first album, like in 75, back in the year of our Lord 1975, there were people were kind of jaw-dropping. It was like, what? That doesn't really compute, because it...
For the first time, the future of Heart was truly uncertain when Seattle turned on its hometown heroes. After several years of silence, the early 2000s brought Heart back to life. The rock world was shifting again, with younger listeners rediscovering 70s-era authenticity. Ann and Nancy reunited on stage in 2002, and soon they were riding together like old times.
This is now playing. And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And then I listened to the whole thing breathlessly, just like I did the first time I heard Magic Man on the radio. I felt kind of the same.
Their comeback album, Jupiter's Darling, 2004, wasn't crafted for radio. It was raw, organic, and proudly rooted in their original sound. Fans and critics welcomed the honesty.
One, you know, I mean, if you give everything to it, everything, then there's a big chance you're going to be really successful.
Heart toured steadily throughout the 2000s, not as nostalgia acts, but as veterans with something real to say. Their 2010 album Red Velvet Car cracked the top 10, proving their relevance decades into their career. By 2012, a return nobody saw coming. Just when everything seemed stable, a sudden family crisis shook the core of Heart. In 2016, Ann's husband became involved in a physical altercation with Nancy's teenage sons backstage at a show. The incident made headlines and created a painful divide between the sisters.
Yeah, that's what people always say. They always go, oh, Seattle, yeah, great camping, fishing, pine trees, clean air. Yeah, but that's all true, but it's also a nice cosmopolitan place to...
They finished the tour, but only by keeping separate dressing areas and traveling apart, something unimaginable for a duo who had spent a lifetime as a united front. When the tour ended, the band went dark. The public called it a feud, but the sisters described it as a deep personal fracture that needed time to heal.
Because we're strange, for sure. But we bring euphoria! 4-disc, 51-song collection featuring previously unreleased demos and rarities.
Look,
live performances of chart-topping hits.
It's quite lovely.
Yeah, it's full of comedy and stylistic shifts and all kinds of cool demos and rarities and live stuff.
Yeah.
And track-by-track commentary.
For 2 years, they pursued separate musical paths, unsure if the bond that built Heart could ever fully recover. The incident that nearly ended Heart forever. Time did what years of pressure and conflict couldn't. It brought the Wilson sisters back together. By 2019, they reconciled and reunited for the Love Alive tour, playing to packed amphitheaters and proving their chemistry hadn't dimmed at all.
We both decided that this, I don't know, it just felt right, you know? There's no big, complicated discussion about why. It just felt good, you know? We'd come back to the place where we could talk and where we had new ideas, both of us, and
Since then, Heart has performed selectively, on their own terms, with no label pressure and no industry puppeteering.
2019 is the right time for Heart to come back because Nancy and I have had a breather, we've taken a break.
You know, we're not going to be scrimping on making this show really exciting. So that's exciting to me.
They've become something rare, a legendary band that survives because they choose to. Rumors swirl of new music, but the sisters are in no rush. Heart's story isn't a simple rise and fall. It's a cycle of evolution. They climbed from Seattle clubs to global fame, endured lawsuits, lineup implosions, 80s reinventions, backlash, burnout, and even family trauma. But Ann and Nancy always found a way forward. Their journey mirrors the industry itself. Chaotic, brilliant, unfair, inspiring. Through every reinvention, from the raw fire of the 70s to the MTV polish of the 80s to the stripped-back honesty of their later years, the Wilson sisters proved that resilience is its own form of artistry. Heart endures because it's heart. Sisterhood, authenticity, and sheer musical power never stopped beating.